So good evening. We are, hey, we're doing something different tonight, and I don't know how this is going to work out. It's either going to be good or it's going to be a complete train wreck. Uh, so I have guests tonight, and we're going to start kind of a new format. We're going to have people come in and sit around this table if we can make all of this work, and interview some people and talk about some things and have some Bible study. So I have Jeff Henry,
Hello.
who's here, and Houston Smith.
Hello.
So we have not rehearsed anything about this. So this is kind of on the fly because we don't really know what we're doing, but we're going to sit around and we're going to talk about fasting, and we have no idea what everybody's going to say, but it's going to be good. So I thought we would start with this because
Remember,
today
this
is Ash Wednesday.
This is like our pilot episode, so there's some kinks and stuff, you know.
And it goes twice as long.
It's a 2-hour episode. Yeah, it will. I'm sure it will have some kinks in it. I'm sure we're going to have some issues with all of this. We have Reggie in the back running all of our sound equipment and all of our camera angles, so we have it going on tonight. It'll be a lot of fun. But today is Ash Wednesday, and we don't, Lent's not like an official church holiday for me. It's something that if you want to do, you can, but if you don't, it doesn't ever say in the Bible that you're supposed to like practice Lent. So you're looking at me, you got something you want to say? So, but I thought we'd start out with this. So, what's your favorite restaurant, Jeff? Your favorite restaurant and your favorite food?
So I would say my favorite restaurant is a place called Andales. It's a Mexican restaurant in New Mexico, and it also has my favorite food, of course. So that would be green chili chicken enchiladas. So I think for Lent this year, I'm probably going to give that up because I'm not planning to be there in the next 40 days. And so it makes it easy. I got that Lent thing covered.
All right. How about you, Houston?
My favorite restaurant is in Missouri, and it's a little Chinese restaurant up on top of the hill by the church building I used to be at. It's called China House. And they have the best crab rangoons ever made, which is my favorite food.
Is that the one that we went to that the air conditioning wasn't working?
Yeah, we went there in the middle of the summer once, and the AC.
Oh, that sounds miserable.
Still my
Travis-
favorite though.
Travis Claude just sent a message that says YouTube ? But Travis, I got a notification from YouTube that we're live. So I don't really know what to say about that because it says we're live on YouTube. So my favorite restaurant it's no longer. I used to like the 101st Airborne that was out by the Nashville airport. They had the best prime rib and the best French onion soup. You went there when you were a kid. I don't know if you remember it. It was kind of down in a bunker. It's
In a
back
bunker.
at the house we used to live at when we lived in Nashville. So I guess I don't know that I have a current favorite restaurant.
So we can
Maybe
all
Douglas
give
is-
up.
Douglas is on Friday when they have ribs. That's
Pretty good.
That's pretty good favorite restaurant.
We're all
to have.
doing good to give up our favorite restaurant for Lent then.
Yeah. I don't have any idea what
Just
that
the
was.
phone going off.
Okay.
Probably Reggie.
I thought that was Reggie whistling at us. And I was like, wow.
Make sure I turn mine off too while we're at it here.
Yeah. So
So is Ash Wednesday something you typically observe, or is it
Me?
Yeah, you personally.
no, it's not something that I usually
Have you
typically
ever?
observe. I've never observed it to the point that I put the cross of
ashes.
ashes on my
I was
head.
gonna. Have you ever been to a Ash Wednesday mass service before?
I have not. Have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went in college once.
Yeah,
All right.
that's when I went.
Yeah.
I think we had to go for Bible class or something.
Okay.
They were
I had a
like,
history
cool.
of religion.
something
class.
different.
We did a lot of stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of connected to two different things. One, it's the 40 days leading up to Easter, and you fast except for Sundays. I know they don't fast on Sundays. It's only the Sundays are excluded because they're a day of celebration. So you fast Monday through Saturday. And that's kind of connected, from what I mean, to Jesus and the 40 days in the wilderness. He fasted 40 days in the wilderness, so they kind of connect those two things together. So, I mean, it's not, again, it's not I don't consider it a official religious requirement.
Right.
Nothing in the New Testament that says you're supposed to fast those 40 days, or the Old Testament that you're supposed to fast those 40 days. But, I mean, I know several people do it, and
Yeah.
it's okay with me.
Have you ever done a 40-day Lent fast from anything?
Yes,
What did you fast from?
ice cream.
Oof.
That was a big thing for me. That was,
All those little ice cream containers in the fridge.
yeah.
I know about
Yeah.
that.
So now I'm, I haven't had one of those in a while, so,
I'm thinking about doing one for the first time this year. I've never
Okay.
done one before.
all right. Like, like a little ice cream cup. You're talking about a fast, right?
Well, I wasn't gonna give something up. I was gonna do something extra, but yeah,
Okay.
I guess we can talk about that later.
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
talk about that. You can, I mean, you don't have to give something up. You can do something extra. So, I did have some slides that just kind of talked about fasting. It's kind of interesting because when I think about fasting in the Bible, one of the first things I think of is the Pharisee. When Jesus talks about the Pharisee and the publican, and he said, well, I fast twice a week and I give tithes of all that I get. And so sometimes we read that and we think, well, then God said you were supposed to fast twice a week. But God never said you were supposed to fast twice a week. That was a Pharisaic tradition.
That was just kind of his way of like saying something he does religiously to appease God or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like we might be like, well, I go to church on Wednesdays and Sundays, and I tune into the live stream. So
I hit the other slide and I kind of cheated to show you that. But there is actually, even in the Old Testament, only one required fast day. If it means a fast day, which I think it does. It doesn't say to fast, it says to, what was the word I used? It says
Afflict.
to
Earlier you
afflict
said
yourselves.
humiliate
or
yourself,
afflict yourselves, yeah. So, and we generally think that probably means fasting, although it could mean many more things than that. It could be, a lot of other things. But that was a Day of Atonement. And so on the Day of Atonement was typically the day in the Old Testament that everybody fasted.
When is the Day of Atonement?
I have no
Like
idea.
in
It's in
today's
October.
calendar? I was just asking because should we fast on the Day of Atonement?
It's around my birthday. It's around October the 10th. So look, while you talk, I'll look up and see what day the Day of Atonement is.
I was just wondering if we should fast on the Day of Atonement, since you said that's the only one that it says you really are supposed to. I've never heard that before.
that's kind of interesting that people don't do that now. It's like the only time you hear about it is around Lent or
Well,
decision to be made or something like that. And
we don't do a lot of fasting now, and we don't talk about it very much, which is interesting considering how much it comes up in the Bible. I mean, you talk about some of the stuff that we do actually do.
right.
You see far less in the text than you do fasting. Fasting comes up all the time. I've been reading through 1st and 2nd Samuel again, and when I get done with those, I'm going to move on to Kings. But fasting comes up there all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a pretty consistent thing that gets.
We don't like talking about it in the South, especially, I think, because everything's
Well,
centered around food.
I'm a foodie, so
At least
Yeah.
giving up
So the
fasting in that sense, in the food sense.
The Day of Atonement is starts the evening of October the 4th through the evening of October the 5th. So it goes from evening to evening, Yom Kippur.
Wow.
And
right.
actually, many times on that day, I will kind of fast,
so you fast on
sometimes, yeah.
sometimes on the.
You know, again, it's not a requirement that I would place on anybody. I mean, it's salvation and atonement comes through Jesus, and you remember him every day, but sometimes on the Day of Atonement, I'll kind of reflect on it, remember it. So, but you had other example. Got any other examples of fasting in the Old Testament you think of?
That I can think of?
Yeah.
You can think of a bunch of them. I mean,
wrote some
David
down
did
on
it
it.
all the time. David did it
Yeah.
pretty much every time he wanted to show reverence for any reason. Sometimes it was
Yeah.
praise. Sometimes it was because he was mourning. Sometimes it was because he was asking something of God. David does it all the time.
It's kind of an interesting thing. I wonder, I don't know if you know this, and I don't know this, I'm just looking. How many times does the word fast come up in the Old Testament?
A bunch.
Just like
Probably in
trivia
the New
question, are we going to
Testament,
guess?
Yeah, we're gonna guess.
It's like
We're gonna
guess
put
the
our best
jelly
answer
beans
out
in the
there?
jar.
Yeah.
I'm going to say
All right, that's not gonna work searching that way.
In the Old Testament?
in the Old Testament or both?
Well, I'm not gonna be able to do it because fast can mean a couple of different things. A lot of these say you hold fast to him, so I can't check it that way. But anyway, there's Leviticus
16.
16 on the screen if any I'm sure Reggie's showing that too if y'all want to read it. I was thinking about that. The Ninevites fasted when Jonah came and preached to them. Esther fasted before she went in,
To the king.
before the king. She asked everybody to fast. Moses fasted on the mountain before he went up to meet God. So those are some pretty big examples of how that works.
Yeah.
So Isaiah 58, I thought is a really kind of an interesting section of verses. So I can't show this on the screen like I normally would on Wednesday night, just because we'll get to that point, but we don't have the technology hooked up in the auditorium to do that yet.
So do you think that our prayer life would benefit from fasting?
Yes. I mean, I don't know how people fast and how they do that. I mean, I know some people that do like really long fasts.
I'm talking about like specifically from food,
Yeah,
because you can talk about fasting being a bunch of different stuff, which
right. But I know people who fast a pretty long time from food.
like when they're praying for something specific, or
I don't know. I never ask them. I just know they have the habit of fasting longer periods, and I never have. I
So-
mean,
So
probably.
even though it's not like a requirement, but it would be a benefit, probably.
yeah,
what you're
I just
saying?
like at the expense of getting political, which I don't really want to, but you don't see many people right now saying, well, you know what, I'm going to fast and pray over the situation that's happening in Ukraine right now. I mean,
That's
I
true.
haven't seen that pop up anywhere.
Right.
But if you were to go back to the Old Testament where it shows up however many thousand times, one of those guys would probably do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Samuel probably would have.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a great, you look even at Clarksville Highway when we have big decisions coming up or things, I think it would all be good. Again, not in a requirement, but in the sense of humbling yourself before God and seeking His guidance. I mean, this is further on in the slideshow, and we're going to be all out of whack, so I can't show it on the slideshow, but because we're jumping all over the place. But it's like, Paul and Barnabas prayed and fasted when they appointed the elders in every city, when they went back through. And then when Paul and Barnabas were sent out and the Holy Spirit made that known to the church, it says that they were praying and fasting. So I think there's a great benefit to it. Again, I don't think it's like it's not like a rule that we set out and say, okay, everybody's going to fast on Wednesday through Thursday or whatever, but it is something I think you can do to help focus your mind on God and to seek God's direction.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like you can have a call, maybe not for everyone in the church to do it, because obviously that may not be the best way that people seek after God, but it could be a call of however you best hear from God when a decision is coming, do that. So some people that might be fasting, some people it might be something different.
Yeah, and usually, I mean, this
When
is
you're-
this Isaiah passage. Usually when we think about fasting, we think about giving something up. But in Isaiah 58, when God is talking about fasting, I mean, for those of you who are listening, y'all just read all of Isaiah 58 later, right? We're not going to read the whole passage, but he says, this is God. He said, is this the kind of fast I have chosen? Only a day for a man to humble himself? Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and for lying on sackcloth and ashes? Is that what you call a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord? And so then God says, is this not the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice, to untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free, to break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and provide the poor wanderer with shelter? And when you see the naked, to clothe him, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood? And then you will, and I skipped verse 8, but verse 9, then you will call and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help and He will say, here am I. If you do away with the yoke of oppression, with a pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness and your night will become like the noonday. So, that's a really great passage, because so often we think of fasting as maybe giving something up, but it's not just the aspect of giving something up. It's channeling your thought to be able to serve God and be more of an instrument for what God wants to do in the world. So you're really seeking God's direction and guidance.
Yeah, there's almost a certain mentality that it's really about, because you see how God knows our heart. And are we fasting? Are we doing things just because the act of doing them, or do you do things for a specific purpose? Like how are you honoring God in whatever you're doing?
Yeah. And because so when you do that, it's not like you're doing something to earn something from God or get something from God. You're doing things that help you focus your attention and your thoughts and your processes on God. And if that's giving up food, then I mean the way I don't have any text in the Bible that says, hey, this is exactly what all of that is about. But if it's giving up food, then, you know, as I look at that, so every time I become hungry and my stomach growls, it's a reminder to pray and focus my thoughts on God.
Every time you want ice cream.
Yeah, every time I want ice cream. So I don't need to have ice cream, I need to pray. But,
Yeah, because it's not just giving the thing up. It's, like you said, focusing on God, agreeing with what God has to say.
yeah.
So replacing that time with, that you'd normally be spent eating or something like that.
You have a square across his face,
Oh,
and it broadcasts a square across his face.
Okay.
Nobody wants to see my face anyway.
yeah.
But
Sorry, we got a camera issue there. There's a clean HDMI setting on there, and it must have gone off.
so one of the key points in Isaiah 58 there was share your bread with the hungry. So when you say, I'm going to fast and I'm not going to eat, then God says, you know, take that and do something with it. Like take that and share what you have
So you
with
shouldn't
those
just,
who are
stock
hungry.
away
So
all the extra money from not going out to eat.
yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask, is in what ways can we take that and say, well, if I'm going to fast, like if I'm going to take 40 days from Lent and I'm going to say no soda or whatever, in what ways can we take that and say, well, I'm not just going to do no soda, I'm going to take that away and I'm going to replace it with something else. And maybe that something else is, you know, service, or maybe that something else is time. Like you could say, no Netflix. Well, if I spend an hour on Netflix every night and I decide to take Netflix away for 40 days for Lent, and then I just replace it with YouTube, I'm not really doing anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll stick to it and I won't watch Netflix. But what if instead of saying that, you say, well, instead of an hour of Netflix, I'll spend an hour in the Word and in prayer. Or you say, instead of no soda, I'll take all of my vending machine money and I'll throw it in a jar, and then I'll take that and I'll do something good with it.
Right. Travis Claude wants to know if he gets extra credit for fasting for 12 years from root beer. I'd be interested to know why he
I'll give
fasted
him
from
extra
root
credit
beer.
because that'd be hard.
And,
I like root beer a lot.
And I know this is live stream, and this is kind of crazy, but right, we're doing stuff off the cuff. We got bugs and stuff. Reggie, I'm not sure that square is through the camera. That software also has a square in it, so you have to see if it's actually. Somebody have to tell us if Houston's face, is there a square on the screen? So that would be that's a question for our audience. So, you know, it's like if you fast from. Just say something simple that you decide, okay, that I'm not going to eat lunch. Then maybe you take the money that you were going to spend for lunch and you give that to somebody or you donate to something. So it's not just not doing it, but you insert something good in it.
Right.
So,
A lot of times I think the fasting nowadays is, I don't know, not as religious. It's like a diet fad now to fast, you know?
It can be. You definitely see like, oh, well, I'm fasting right now. And some people do it just because they want to like
Yeah.
lose weight. But it
Right.
also kind of helps them look really religious at the same time. I
Yeah.
mean,
Maybe it is a religious diet or something, I don't know.
it happens.
I don't know, but if you're
Get
doing it
both.
to lose weight and you're not doing it to center your thoughts on God, I don't know that
Then
we
it's
would consider it
different.
the same
Right.
kind of fast. That's something completely different.
So it has to be the,
You know,
the
and plus-
intentions behind the fast.
Yeah, and plus kind of going where we're going, that Jesus fasted 40 days and 40 nights, right? I've never fasted 40 days. But I had a slide up there, but it's too far out. What I was going to talk about with, it's on one of the slides up there with Jeff, is when we fast, I mean, if you do decide to fast, you're supposed to do it in a way that nobody knows what you're doing. I mean, so you don't go tell everybody you're fasting.
Which is really hard to do.
Yeah, and you don't, you Jesus said, you know, you anoint yourself and you,
Because I don't know if
You
you ever
keep it in
done it,
secret.
and then you're out with someone, and they're like, "Why are you not eating?" It's like,
Yeah.
do you tell them, or does that kind of go against what you're supposed to do?
I guess it would depend on who it is. You know, you don't make a show of it.
Right.
Because
And
it
you
depends
don't,
on why you're telling them.
yeah, and you don't do it so everybody else will see you and think that you're righteous or religious because you're fasting. Not boasting, there we go. Our voice from above.
God.
No, Reggie.
Oh.
All right, so anyway, I don't know what I had on these slides up here. So spiritual awareness is one of the reasons that you would fast, you know, and I think about even the idea of self-control.
Yeah.
Paul said, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be dominated by anything. But I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. So there's something about, you know, being able to keep our bodies in control and our thoughts in control and making sure that we're not mastered by something other than Jesus. And I never did get a reason. Travis, you owe us why you fasted from root beer.
He said for 12 years.
For
so
12
I think
years,
He just
so-
doesn't like it, is what it sounds like.
Well, maybe if he doesn't like it. I do like root beer, so
Probably
that'd
would
be
have
something
figured
to
that out
fast from.
before, like, I don't know, just in the last 12 years.
Yeah,
That you
so
didn't like it, right?
so that was the thing, the verse about fasting in secret. When you fast, you need to do it in a way that other people don't know. You know, wash your head, wash your face, so that your fasting's not seen by others, but by your Father who sees in secret.
Yeah, that's a good verse. I mean, I always read that and thought, well, that's kind of weird. Like, how would people know unless you told them? But, you know, I guess your body looks a little different sometimes. That's why it says to wash up and stuff like that. So, I don't know. It always seemed like it was obvious, like, okay, yeah, like, okay, I can do that part. Don't tell people. But then, like I said, when people come and ask questions, you're at work and they're like, why aren't you eating? It's a lunch break. Or why are you, you know, not eating after church? Everyone goes out to eat after church.
Yeah,
And then you kind of have, like, oh, that's what you're talking about. Like, people are going to become aware of that, I guess.
yeah. Or
gonna-
you do it on days that you know you don't
See
do
as
it on
many.
a day that you know you're going out to eat with somebody, or you're supposed to meet somebody somewhere. You
Yeah, that's
do it on a
true.
day where you can stay more to yourself. You gonna say something?
I was. You have 3 different reasons listed for. Here's why you would fast, and one of them is a reminder of our sin and need for repentance. And typically, when we talk about fasting, that's not the reason that it comes up. Usually, it's it's Lent, or I'm going to do it for self-control, which is one of the reasons you listed, and the other one is spiritual awareness. But I don't think I ever hear of anybody fasting for recognition of the need for repentance.
Yeah, but you have a lot
see
of
them.
those. You have a lot of those examples in the text.
Yeah, you see it in the Bible all the time. I just don't think I've ever heard of it, like, in my lifetime. I don't think I've never met anyone who did that.
The concept of fasting or the concept of sitting in sackcloth and ashes.
Yeah, well,
But
I
yeah.
was just reading, like, this morning I was reading Samuel where, Nathan came to David and pointed out his sin, the thing that he had done, and his response to it is mourning and fasting. He sackcloth and ashes, and then he doesn't eat for so many days. So it's an example in the Bible you see all the time, but
We
it's
definitely don't
not
do that.
it's not the first thing I think of when I think, I really messed up, I need to repent from that. I'm going to not eat for 3 days. And is that like a punishment on myself, or is that like a show of reverence? What was the reasoning behind that? Do you know?
no, I mean, I think, and this is going to sound like a really crazy example of the way that I think it works, but I think sometimes when you become so focused on something else, that food kind of disappears off the radar. Like I can think of times like if somebody was in the hospital and they were really sick, and you go to the hospital and, and they're really critical condition and you don't know if they're going to live or die. And you may stay in the hospital for a day or a day and a half, and then somebody will finally come to you and say, hey, you need to get something to eat. And you don't realize you need to go get something to eat because you are so focused, so in tune to something else, that food has just kind of disappeared off the radar. And so in answering that question, I think what happens sometimes is the seriousness of our sin doesn't strike us as much as it should, so that the idea of repentance and the idea of turning back to God, the idea that we have done something that is that serious, doesn't really impact us the way that it should. So I don't know that it's like they sat down and said, okay, I've sinned, I need to fast for 3 days. I think probably, I mean, as I look at it, I think just their sorrow over the fact that they have sinned, they were so focused on that they didn't eat. I mean, the Bible doesn't really say why they fasted, just that they did, but that's what I think. And I get to think.
Like
I mean, I
it's not like a
get a side
decision
of
they
that.
thought about, it just kind of happened. Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying? Like,
So you're saying it wasn't really maybe wasn't a decision. Like I've had times when I was so upset that I
Right.
didn't want to eat, and maybe went a couple days without like not eating at all, but didn't really have much of an appetite.
Right.
But
And I think
it
it's
wasn't
that,
a conscious choice. It wasn't like, well, I'm not going to eat because blah blah blah.
well, I think it's that
Just
same
kinda
kind of
subconsciously
scenario
happens.
where your conscience or whatever, you're upset, something's happened in life, and you just don't eat.
That's interesting. Never thought of that.
I've never thought of it that way.
So, we talked about fasting to seek God's guidance, which is a couple of examples you have in the text. When elders are chosen, I can't advance that slide. So when elders are chosen and, there we go. So in the church of Antioch, when they chose elders, it said, so after they had fasted and prayed, they placed their hands on them and sent them off. That's when they chose Barnabas and Paul for the work to which the Holy Spirit had called them. And then Paul appointed elders in each church with prayer and fasting and committed them to the Lord in whom they had put their trust. So I think there is a precedent for, when you're doing, something to the magnitude of even selecting elders, that I think there's a time for fasting and prayer. And I think that's probably a pretty intentional time, unlike some of the others that we talked about where you say, okay, the church is going to fast for a day and we want you to pray over our selection of elders, that God would have that to be a great choice and a good choice. Or maybe we're trying to decide whether to do something as a church, or maybe it's to support a missionary, or maybe some kind of work that we want to do, that the elders at times might ask but the church to fast and pray over it.
So when you talk about fasting like that, you would say, well, we're going to not eat to help us focus on asking God for this. When earlier we were talking about, like, if you take something away, you replace it with something else. So would you say, like the 30 minutes that I would normally spend eating dinner or lunch or breakfast, I'm just going to spend that time praying?
Yes.
Pray about
Okay.
the selection.
Or just whenever your body reminds you it's hungry, to take that time to pray.
So constantly?
Yeah, that'd be good. That's another New Testament example, right? Being constant
Yeah.
in prayer.
Yeah.
So maybe what we ask you to do, instead of listening to talk radio on your way to work, now I've got that on this list of things you might fast from, but instead of turning the radio on while you drive, you spend that time talking to God. Instead of watching the Netflix show or doing the binge watching on Netflix
But we
or
would
Hulu
still
or
say that's
whatever.
not a requirement, right?
Yeah.
So who is the people, like in this, who's the Paul and Barnabas that you would say probably need to fast during that time? That's kind of something I think of, I guess.
I guess it's not that you have to, it's that you can choose to.
Right.
And it would be enriching and it would help your relationship with God, but no one is going to hold it against you if you don't.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's like, I think probably,
Like
and
any-
we've never done this, Brandy Hunter says she can fast from root beer for life. So we got a root beer theme going on here.
Root beer
So,
haters and-
I like root beer,
You
so I'm not a
fast from
hater.
cheese,
I was gonna
probably.
say,
Yeah.
I took
So
that
I think,
personally.
I think probably what you would do in that case, me as how I would think about that as an elder is that we would ask people, if you would like to, we'd like for you to pray and fast over this particular thing. And if somebody chose not to, or medically they weren't able to, there wouldn't be any kind of negative implication because they chose not to. They just chose not to,
Right. I guess it's like anything we ask as we
Yeah.
preach and say, hey, it'd be really good if the church went out and served the community better. If they didn't do it, we're not going to like hold it against them.
Right. And so we normally
So
think
it's-
food,
we always think of some kind of challenge that we have for people, so it'd just be another challenge probably.
yeah, so we normally think about food, but there's different things that people could fast from. I read a thing today about what if you took the two apps you use the most on your phone and deleted those two apps, whatever they are. You just didn't use those for a period of time. So every time you went to your phone to do the thing, whatever you do on those apps, that it would be a reminder for you to spend some time
It'd be weird
praying.
to delete the Bible app though.
Yeah, so not the Bible app, but,
I don't think that's my most used app.
but that's
either,
probably, yeah, if you
my
get on
most
there
used
and,
app.
Like, get the Bible out of here.
some people give up food or maybe just a certain type of food occasionally.
That's a really interesting example because sometimes we forget how automated that becomes when you have like a certain thing that you do on your phone and you have 8 milliseconds of downtime, how quick you reach in your pocket and you go to where an app is and you click on it. And there have been a couple times where, you notice like, I probably need to get rid of this one, and you get rid of it. And then for weeks after that, you
go to the spot.
you wouldn't have
click on it.
noticed. Yeah, you wouldn't have noticed if it wasn't there. Like you would have just pulled it out and done it, and it would have been natural. But because it's not there, you start to realize how often you pull your phone out and try to open up whatever it is. And you pull it out and you move over and you press on an empty spot because there's no app there. You're like, wow, I really should have gotten rid of this because I do this all the time. It's like a reflex.
Travis Center thinks that yesterday Pope Francis called for everyone to fast and pray on Ash Wednesday today for Ukraine. And there is and even within Churches of Christ, there is a large population of those who are in our own fellowship in Ukraine. So, but not necessary, but that would be one of the things that you would stop and fast and pray for, just for what's happening in Ukraine and the safety of the people who live there. So,
That'd be one of those.
I read one that said you give up an attitude, like quit being sarcastic for a period of time, or maybe you could give up negative comments for a few days. I thought those
That
were
might be
interesting. Yeah, but again,
Seems like the most common ones are like junk foods and sweets and sodas, or
yeah.
that seems like the easiest thing because that's something we do every day. Maybe.
I wrote down Amazon. Maybe somebody could fast from Amazon.
Good luck with that. We
Yeah.
get an Amazon package every day.
But I'm not. That wasn't directed to anybody in our family. I'm
Uh-huh.
just saying maybe you could. But if you fast from something like that, if you choose not to do that, and again, it's not just choosing not to do it, but it's a reminder for you to spend that time in prayer and that time focused in seeking God. And it's not. And I want to be careful with that because it's that attitude of seeking God, no matter what's going on. You can't restrict that to 40 days in a year. That's something that you're supposed to do every day. So maybe you have special times during the year that you focus on that you do smaller fast or shorter fast. But you don't have just 40 days in a year that you're really supposed to spend giving something up or doing something different so you'll spend more time with God. That's something you should develop every day of your life, which, might be, you ask me if I ever really celebrated Lent, and the answer to that's no, but the concept is something that I hope that I pursue every day.
Yeah.
For a long time, I would not like to listen to the radio in the car. And sometimes I still do this, but I just decided, okay, all the time that I spend in the car, I'm just going to spend talking to God.
Yeah.
At one time, it was Greek vocabulary, right? Houston had listened to a lot of Greek vocabulary when he was a kid,
Way to
but
school.
Houston and Rye both.
Greek conjugations.
Yep. So, but
Exciting.
You were ready for it by college.
It's
though.
either that or Queen. So
yeah.
tell you which day I preferred.
So, but you can always have something like that you do, not just necessarily a particular time of the year, but a way that you can focus your thoughts more on God. And it could be giving up. I thought like teenagers, what if you give up video games?
Well, I also want to throw in you don't have to take it to an extreme just because you fast and you want to take some time to pray over something or consider something. You know, you don't have to fast for like an entire day. You could say, you know what, this morning I'm going to give up breakfast and I'm going to spend extra time with God. Or maybe you have a big decision coming up and you say, well, I think tonight I will skip dinner and I'll just pray during that time. But you don't have to do it for an entire day. You could
Right.
also, you could give up one meal. I mean, that's,
It's like
Yes.
anything, any
A lot more
habit we try to
feasible.
create, we try to jump in like too much and then we get discouraged.
yeah, I
about
mean,
it.
you can,
Like, well, I was going to start reading my Bible and I tried to do it for 3 hours today. It didn't work. So I
Right.
guess I'm just not going to do that anymore.
and you could do that, you
We
know,
do that
any
with
night of the
fasting.
week. On like a Tuesday, you could say, you know what, I'm just going to not watch Netflix tonight. Instead, I'm going to spend some time in
Yeah.
the text.
Definitely.
And it can be spontaneous. I mean, you don't have to have a specific reason. It just, you're reading a
So-
comment, you have something you want to say.
No, I want to read another. I want to read another Travis text. We have to get Travis, on
Travis
here
is
too.
our fourth person
Yeah.
at the table this morning.
Said, quote, "We implore from God that peace which men and women are incapable of building by themselves. Restore peace to our hearts. Once again, grant your peace to our days." So I don't know what that was a quote
There you
from.
go.
Might have been from
that
Pope
from Pope?
Francis. I don't know.
So
Hey,
you-
I did write one thing on here that before we go to the Jeff interview part, I wanted to say, I'm really kind of passionate about this one. Giving up something or a sin you shouldn't be doing anyway isn't a fast. So like if you decide, okay, I'm going to fast from something, but then you pick something you shouldn't have been doing anyway, or something that was a sin, then that's not really a fast. That's removing something from your life that shouldn't be there anyway. So,
You could fast in repentance for the thing that you should have not been doing.
Yeah.
That's an option.
you could absolutely do that. But, you can't say, I'm going to give this up for so many days and then I'll go back to doing it. That's not,
That doesn't count as a fast.
not
So-
for me, it doesn't.
So I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. It says, at the beginning we talked about how it's 40 days of fasting leading up to Easter, but not Sunday. So the thing you give up during Lent, is that also, like, do you get to do that on Sunday? Like make all your Amazon purchases on Sunday, or? how
That
does
is actually a
work?
good question. So if I'm going to say I'll give up, yeah, let's say I want to give up Amazon for a week. So I just make all of my Amazon purchases on Sunday. Am I really giving that up at that point, or am
Yeah.
I just kind
Because
of
I've never thought about
pooling it all in
that
one
way.
day?
Like I always thought Lent, like they did it all 40 days, I guess.
Well, I don't practice Lent in that way,
Yeah.
so it doesn't really apply to me. So I think probably, I have no idea. I just know that the fasting is
You're like, I'm
not
gonna
on the
eat.
Sundays. If you count 40 days from today, it's the 40 days, not counting the Sundays.
like,
Because
Eat all
that's a
your
day
junk
of
food on
celebration and
Sundays.
remembering
well,
Jesus.
like last night is Fat Tuesday. So if I say, I'm gonna fast for so many days during Lent, but then I just totally gorge myself right before I start, like I did last night at the Japanese restaurant. Not that I'm giving up food or anything, but I don't know. Does that affect do you think that affects
Well,
how
the Fat
seriously
Tuesday
you take
part's
it? I
really
mean,
not the religious part, right?
no, not really. And I guess if you're going to fast for 40 days, it's not going to hurt anything to really go hard right before
Yeah.
you start. But,
Well, but when you think about those concepts, most people don't fast for 40 days. They might give something
Oh,
up.
no.
And if people choose to do that, I think that's fine if you choose to do that. I think if you choose that you're not going to give something up to 40 days, it doesn't make you any less spiritual. Again, it's not any kind of commandment from God. It's just something that some people do as part of religious practice.
so would you say that fasting in the Old Testament was more of a cultural significance thing?
No, I don't think it was necessarily cultural. I think it's probably it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier when, sometimes things happen in life you just don't think about eating. And I think probably, I think those times still happen. I mean, honestly, I think for at least some in my generation, I don't know about yours, but my culture, it's like, well, God didn't say we had to do that, so I'm not going to. But I think there is still some benefit. I think there are some reasons that fasting is mentioned sometimes in the Bible, and I think it has spiritual benefits. Now, I don't think you're any less spiritual if you choose not to, or necessarily more spiritual if you choose to, but I think there are times in life that it it's helpful and beneficial. And I don't do it, I mean, I wouldn't say that I do it a lot, but I do try. If I were going to do it, I would do it in a way that nobody would know. You know, it might be like something really simple like missing a meal when I'm not going to be around anybody, you know,
Yeah.
or, you know, something like that. But I
The
think,
whole like, if you give, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing,
Right.
or when you pray, go lock yourself in your closet and do it in private.
yeah. Hey, we got to get to the Jeff part.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're supposed to talk to Jeff. So each
few more
night,
questions.
as we do this, we're going to have somebody come in, and we're going to talk to them a little bit too. And I hope, my plan is each one of the elders to come in and get interviewed. We may have to pre-record some of those, and some other people from church, and some people not even from our church. But tonight is Jeff. So
Yeah.
we're gonna sit and ask Jeff questions
That's why he's in the
tonight.
middle chair.
Well, he's in the middle chair. Yeah, the
seat of
middle
honor.
chair. Yeah, the middle chair gets the questions, right?
The hot seat.
The hot seat.
So we start with what's your favorite book of the Bible?
I would say probably my favorite book of the Bible is Book of James, which I think a lot of people that's their favorite. So it sounds probably cliche, but it's like, I don't know. I'm a very simple person and not like, you know, very wordy and all that kind of stuff. So to me, it's very simple, and it's like straight up tells you like instructions very simply, and it's not like you don't have to read into it too much like a lot of stuff. He's straight out there with you, I guess. So
Cool. Hey, I'm not
Like
the
that
only
one.
question asker here, too. You can ask whatever question you
Yeah,
want.
but you came prepared for question asking, and I didn't know I was going
They're
to
on
be here
your
till
notes there.
2 hours beforehand.
So, like, how did you get introduced to faith in Jesus and church, and how did that work?
let's see. It's kind of a very in-depth question, I guess. So I was introduced to Jesus and to the church when my parents divorced. So my mom decided to take us to church once my parents divorced. And I've asked her about that before, and she just said that seemed like the best place I could go because I was certain. So I was like, all right. So that's kind of my introduction to church. Was we were in a terrible time, difficult time in our family with divorce happening, and we needed somewhere to have that community and love and support and stuff like that. So my mom introduced me to church, and then we started going to church a lot and kind of created that habit, I guess. And when my mom remarried, of course, she found a Christian man to marry, and so that continued as we went to church. And then what was the second part of that? Introduced to Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, just like, how old were you then?
Yeah, I was like 5, I think.
Okay.
So I
So-
don't remember all of it necessarily, but I do remember we started going to church, and there was a lot of cool stuff happening with, like, we ended up going to a church with like a large children's ministry because we were all at that age where that's kind of what we needed and stuff. And so, yeah, that was kind of my intro to Jesus and to the church. And
So anybody have a really strong spiritual impact on you through that?
yeah, we had a program that was like, kind of like Cheryl's been doing here, where there's people praying over like kids in the children's ministry and stuff like that. And so there's a lady, Adele Hartman was her name, if she's out there listening. I doubt she is, but I still do
Somebody might send
talk
this
to
to
her
her.
on Facebook and stuff like that. So she was one that was pretty instrumental in that time and praying for me. And probably more importantly to me at the time was that they brought you little like gifts at church each Sunday, so that you'd get like a little chocolate or some kind of little trinket. So that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
But that kind of continued, and then just went into youth ministry, and my youth pastor was big, instrumental in my life at that time. And kind of there was like a group of us when my youth pastor. Well, the youth pastor that I had, I guess, got to our church. There was like 6 or 8 of like 8th grade, 7th grade boys, I think, and that was in my age group, and he really just like kind of took us under his wing, and coincidentally he left shortly after all of us were gone, but we all kind of really developed in our faith during that time and stuff. So
That's cool.
got challenged into doing all the prayers and different things at church. So all the youth out there, definitely get involved in praying and leading worship or whatever you can at church, because that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
So you went from there to Abilene Christian?
I did, yeah. So I guess that's another person in my life was our preacher growing up. He went to Abilene Christian, so I decided I wanted to go look at that school to see what that was about. And so, because he was just a good Bible teacher that I really liked and enjoyed listening to and stuff like that. So I went there. If you know anything about New Mexico, where I grew up, they don't have any like Christian colleges or anything. So when I decided I wanted to go to Christian college, I wanted to pursue youth ministry as a career and stuff like that, I started looking somewhat close to where I grew up. So Texas is like the state over. Geography lesson, y'all didn't know you were getting that tonight.
Yeah.
So I started looking at schools there, and ACU was one that stood out to me. I ended up going there for, I think I actually did it in 4 years, so that's cool.
Cool.
That's my college roommate.
Oh, good.
FaceTiming me.
Right there, FaceTiming
Cool.
you.
Well, put him on.
I was about to ask that because
Yeah.
I went to Harding, you went to Abilene.
Yeah.
Do you have any professors who were like really instrumental in your development, or do you have any, close friends that you were kind of invested in while you were in college who kind of helped push you forward?
Yeah, my freshman year, I got really close. I mean, I think everybody does. The hall that you lived on in the dorms
Yeah.
and stuff, those became kind of my best friends. And we unfortunately didn't make it to a lot of class in the early mornings the next day when we were up hanging out and stuff. But the only class I failed in college was first semester. So
If you are any of Clarksville Highway youth, do not listen to this part.
Yeah, I would say don't sign up for 8 a.m. classes. That would be my first point of advice. And you can ask
advice.
Greg. I still don't get to the office before 8 a.m. So
I had Greek at AM with Harvey Floyd.
That sounds terrible. That's an
Every-
awful way
I
to
think
start.
I think from my sophomore year on, except my senior year, I had Dr. Michael Moss.
It's the most brain melting class.
But yeah, I think
straight
I had,
first
I think
thing
my
in the
first
morning.
class every morning
I
was
had Greek after lunch, which was
That's not better though.
not much better.
That's nap
I'm a
time.
little sleepy then, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say probably, I mean, he's kind of big in Church of Christ world, but Randy Harris was one of my favorite college professors.
Randy Harris
Freshman,
was one of my professors.
freshman Bible. Really?
When I was at graduate
See
school.
what
at
you
Lipscomb.
learn.
And
Yeah.
dang, see? He's been all over the place, I guess.
Yeah, we're from all over because he went to Lipscomb. I went to Harding, and you went to Abilene.
Yeah, we
We
got
just
him
need somebody
well
from Pepperdine
represented
here.
here. I should have went to Pepperdine, I think.
The more I think about it,
Like, why didn't I want to go on the beach all the time?
yeah.
But yeah, Randy Harris was a good one, and Robert Oglesby, he was the head of the youth ministry department. He's one of my favorite professors too. So those were the ones that were pretty impactful for me in college. And
So Randy did that thing on, I think it was the Sermon on the Mount while he was at Abilene and talked about some of his students. Were you in his class when he did that?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
When he did like the DVDs and
Yeah.
Bible studies on it, yeah. Randy's class, we had to memorize the Sermon on the Mount.
Ah,
That was like half
I had
the
to do
grade.
that.
so we should
Yeah.
have just had you quote it tonight.
Yeah, I know. I should have kept it up. That's what.
Yeah.
That was my final one here.
So what do you like about Clarksville Highway?
I don't like any. No, I'm just kidding. No, I love being in Clarksville Highway. My favorite thing about it is probably just like the family atmosphere, which you get from a little bit smaller church, but everyone's like very close. Like I've been to a lot of churches, interned at different churches over the years and stuff, and worked at a couple churches now, I guess. And everyone like I said, it's like family. Like it goes beyond Sunday morning church or Wednesday night church. Like people do life together outside of church all the time, which I think is cool. They go on trips together. They do like everything. Where a lot of times I feel like I've experienced like those are your friends on Sunday morning, but then you go hang out with other people the rest of the week. So I think that's pretty cool, kind of element that we have here. So
Yeah. So the last two questions are pretty tough. So what is your
I can't believe you're gonna do this to him.
why not?
I ask it.
What's your favorite part of ministry?
Oh, I thought I was thinking the next one.
Oh, but we won't ask the next one. What's your
Yeah.
favorite? What's your favorite part of ministry? I mean, what do you?
favorite part of ministry is, I don't know. I'm trying to think, like the youth ministry answer. They're like, hey, hitting kids with dodgeballs or whatever. But my favorite part is really probably just seeing faith come alive for kids. Just the excitement that they have surrounded by, whether it's at camp or different events and stuff like that. Just like when it clicks for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's why we do what we do, and this is important to me, and all that kind of stuff. And probably the other thing I like a lot is that it's always different. Like I get really bored with things. So I don't want to just sit at a desk all day and do that as a job. Like I would hate that. And you can ask Greg or Houston. Like I'm always moving around. Like every few hours, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go work here for a little bit. I'm gonna get out of the office or something like that because I can't. It's really hard for me to sit and work all day on one thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So I do like that it's always different and to have that flexibility to, whether you're going to be working on a lesson in the office, you're going to be cleaning church vans. I did that this week, or going to kids' games, or there's just always different stuff with it, which is really cool, I think.
You didn't enjoy cleaning the church van, did you?
No, not too much.
Maybe that can be the answer to the
Least favorite
Yeah,
part,
least
cleaning
favorite
church
part of
vans.
ministry, cleaning
Yeah.
the church van.
Houston's laughing at me because one of the questions I had on here is, what's your least favorite part of ministry? So you don't have to
It's
answer
just a
that
really
if you
hard
don't want.
question. Cleaning church vans.
It
Yeah,
is a
cleaning
hard
church
question.
van.
It is not the best part.
No.
Cleaning church vans?
Cleaning the church van.
No, I
It's
never
not
liked
fun.
cleaning the church van, especially
It's like
after
a
youth
necessary
trip.
part, but it's not the best, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say it kind of goes along with that part that it's always different, but it's always, it's always different hours too, I think. So that's probably a challenging part. I wouldn't say like I hate that, because sometimes it's cool to, be gone on a weekend trip to the amusement park or something. But it is still, giving up a lot of evenings and weekends sometimes, which
Yeah.
can be
And-
difficult for other things you want to do in life, because there's always fun stuff to do, and it
Yeah.
always seems to be.
And as fun
on
as
the
those
evenings and
weekend trips
weekends.
are, because you did youth ministry for a while too, so you know how it is. As fun as those weekend trips are, the guy in charge doesn't really get a lot of sleep. I mean, it's kind of
No.
you kind of just go, and then you get home and you crash because you stay up late making sure everything goes
Yeah.
smooth, and you
You're
wake up
the-
early to make sure
You're
everything
the
gets
last
started
one
right.
to sleep and the first one up.
Yeah, and if anything goes wrong, you got to fix it. I mean, it's not a
I had a
it's not
friend.
an easy task.
I had a friend the other day. He's like, enjoy your vacation to go skiing, and I'm like, that's not a vacation. Like, yes, I'll have fun skiing, like we had at the retreat a couple weeks ago, but
Count heads constantly and make sure
yeah,
some kid doesn't
They
get
were
hurt.
still working there. I was
Right.
like, aren't you just going out for the weekend and having fun? I'm like,
Yes,
yes.
100%. What's your favorite event out of the year? Like as far as consistent events go?
That's a good question.
You can give me the cliche church camp answer?
No,
I do
don't
like
think
church
so.
camp though.
Trying to think. Actually, I really like the Christmas party. I think.
That's a good answer. The Christmas parties are
Yeah,
always fun.
We always have fun with the Christmas party, or really, I guess it's kind of multiple answers. Is like we try to do our devos around holidays and things like that. So we'll do some like pumpkin carving in October. We'll do
Yeah.
a church Christmas thing.
Do y'all do like
December,
a gift exchange?
Friendsgiving in November.
Friendsgiving is fun.
So I like doing the holiday themed events, I guess. So we do a gift exchange, yes.
Those are always fun.
I'll try to change that up too, because I feel like it gets predictable. Like if you're just like, hey, pick a number, then you go or something.
Yeah.
Like have you done? There's ones where you can like read a Christmas story, and like if you say left, or right, and then you just pass it. Have you ever done that? That's
I
quite
haven't
fun,
done that
too.
one, no. Who's
So-
your favorite kid in the youth group? Just kidding. Don't.
All right, we've had a good night, y'all.
You talk about me doing difficult questions.
I actually want him to answer it.
Yeah. All right. So what else? Y'all want to talk about anything
Whoever-
else? We've been on an hour. They're probably
Yeah.
This is a
usually
pilot,
when
though.
we go close to an hour,
Yeah.
I hear people saying, "Y'all went a little long tonight, didn't
Yeah.
you?"
Hey,
Little
to answer your
long-winded.
question though,
Don't
if
answer
there's
that
any
question.
kids out there listening, I do take bribes, and then I'll maybe answer it the next week.
Yeah. Or you can just.
I think
they're
the
all
right
special.
answer, if there's any kids out there listening, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that we have much of a teenage audience. We'll see. Don't know.
You
No.
never know.
All right. Well, cool. Hey, we hope y'all enjoyed this. Again, it was the first attempt at this. We don't know how it went or how it's going to go, but it's been good.
I just realized something fun. If you decide to have like a guest star come on through Zoom or something, you can throw them up on the projector and they could just be behind us.
Yeah. We'd just struggle to get the video. Well, I guess the video would play.
You know
through
any
the
famous
computer.
people we could interview? Throw them on Zoom.
Not really.
Hey, if you're out there and you're famous, if you'll
You wanna
let
be on
us
our
know and
projector.
want to be interviewed with Clarksville Highway, we'll throw
Yeah.
you in the Zoom meeting and we'll figure it out.
Do we know who's you're next week, right?
I'm next week. So next week we'll do a study. I think Houston and Jeff are going to interview me.
Yeah, next week Jeff gets
Save
to
those
interview
hard
you and
questions.
ask you really hard questions.
Yeah, that's okay.
What's your least favorite part about ministry? What's your greatest weakness?
I got it. I'm ready.
Who's your
Cheese.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite person at
Who's my
church?
favorite person at
Who's your
church?
favorite person in church?
Hot Babe. That's my favorite
Oh,
person at
Which
church.
is your favorite
He's got a
elder?
cop out.
My favorite elder? Myself. We just do that, right? So, yeah. So we don't have to do those two
Preview
questions next
questions.
week. We've already done
Yeah.
it. All right. Hey, thanks for tuning in. And, hey, if you even have a suggestion for a Bible study, something you want us to cover, just shoot me an email or send me a text. We're open to suggestions, right? And then hopefully we'll have kind of different people on every night. It'll probably be the same three of us next week, but then hopefully we can kind of mix it up. So if you'd like to be a guest, please let us know and we'll have you on.
Maybe the guest could choose the theme, the
Yeah.
Bible study.
Maybe we could do that.
And if
Guest
you wouldn't
chooses-
like to be a guest, we'll find you.
That's right. Find you anyway. All right, so we are going to sign off. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Yeah.
Good
See
night.
y'all Sunday. Have a
Good
good
night.
night.